Welcome to the bunker. Und bunker. Welcome, Laura Eisenhower. How are you doing? This
I'm
is a
doing good.
huge honor and privilege.
Well, it's great to be here. It's
Uh,
mutual.
okay, I'm recording on two things, so it's doing three things. I'm doing three things at once here, for God's sake. Laura, it was really fantastic following you at the conference in Tampa.
The last conference,
Yeah,
the expo?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, right. We're having this. Laura, could you explain to some people who you are, just briefly, 2 seconds? I mean, and anybody who doesn't know who you are is just being silly.
Uh, well, I'm an astrologer. I'm a researcher. I am a speaker. I'm the great granddaughter of President Eisenhower, and I go into topics about hidden things that took place during his administration that, dark agendas. And I was recruited to go off planet and have a lot of just interesting research to present to people because of my experience.
Now, I
Yeah,
didn't
it's
know
just
that. I'm just going to wind a couple of things down here. I didn't know that. Explain. Now, the other
explain.
thing is, I'm from Northern Ireland, and my grandfather's house it was in Lurgan, and there was a place there called a castle. They're not really castles; they're big houses, and it's called Brownlow House. And I think your grandpappy may have, is it your grandfather or great grandfather,
Great grandfather.
may have been there in the war, because
Mm.
before they went to England, they did a lot of stuff for planning in Northern Ireland. And I mean, every part of the British Isles have been used for something. And I think that's amazing because beside that, well, we don't know. Perhaps he was, perhaps he wasn't. But let's get on to what your experiences are. We're dealing hardcore here, so let's stop. Time is limited, and so let's get down to it. What have you been? What did you mean by what you just said?
Well, I mean, it's just been an interesting life. Coming in to this family, I just knew that I'm here to expose things that he warned us about, the military industrial complex. What are the deeper layers of that? And it goes a bit beyond research because I was recruited to go off planet and had this targeting on me my whole life. And
Now,
it
what?
just led me down a lot of different rabbit holes that helped me to um, come up with the material and research that I present
So, could you
about.
want to just go in there and how it started and what happened?
Oh, well, most of my life, I felt there was just some sort of attention on me and just some kind of targeting on me. But I mean, I couldn't really communicate that with people because it's all invisible weaponry, right? Um, and I guess, as a child, when I was communicating with the spirit of Eisenhower and everything was kind of coming into me about, our connection, um, I don't know, I just sort of knew what I was up against.
And
It's
what was that exactly?
it's really about taking down the deep state and understanding what has happened to our world, the psyops, the social engineering. Where is this rooted in? What really took place during his administration? So I was always interested in the stories about the possibility that he had some kind of connection with extraterrestrial races, and uh, and the enormity of information that I have found about all of this is kind of what I've uncovered. Part of it is, okay, I was recruited to go to Mars, and this relates to a group called the Aviary that some people might have heard of. And the individuals in this group have interest in UFO abduction. They're called the Aviary. It's kind of like a think tank group. They have something called the Weird Desk. They
Now,
have members like Hal
Aviary
Puthoff.
infers birds,
Yes. And
insects.
they have code names that are bird names, right? So you have Hal Puthoff, you have Jack Sarfati, um, You have Richard Doty, all these different people that are in this aviary group were a part of this recruitment process. And basically, they use tracking. They tracked me, and they used looking glass technologies to locate me in a previous lifetime in order to sort of control the timeline and the narrative. Um, because supposedly Eisenhower was briefed that a descendant would be born to uncover the truth. And I think the most significant thing is what took place in 1952, which is the Unconditional Surrender Agreement, where we surrendered to the ICC Nazi Draco alliance. And that, uncovering this sort of thing.
Now, who's
And then
we?
who's we?
Who's we doing the surrendering?
The United States.
Right.
So under Truman, when we surrendered to the ICC Nazi Draco alliance, you know, and everything that took place during his administration, including alternatives one, two, and three being presented to that administration as possible events that might take place in the future. When I was born and was targeted to actually go off planet, my position was I need to call this out because, okay, there's survival colonies on Mars. And if they want to take certain individuals to Mars because of potential cataclysmic events that might take place on Earth, I've just felt a calling to call out the weaponry, the engineering of apocalyptic events that are steering humanity into a trajectory of new world order. So that's kind of where there's this sort of collaboration on a soul level with Eisenhower is that they intercepted that information during his administration that a descendant would be born into the family to help disclose the truth. And some remote viewers have told me that this is why I was targeted to go off planet so that I wouldn't disclose what I'm here to disclose. And this is the thing, we know a lot of people are targeted. They don't want certain information coming out. And there's bases on, as you know, the moon and Mars, and the bases on Mars. So this group called the Aviary had recruited this person through my labs, military abductions, into their group. And they used him as bait and sent him on a mission to find me and pull me in. So basically, there's a point in my life where I felt like this control energy or just some sort of psychotronic weaponry, I guess you could say, was interfering with my life. And I went to a clairvoyant institute that helped me to understand this actually, which was very synchronistic. I went to a gathering in Virginia with my children. I was a single mother because I needed to just, meet people and get out of the house. And I met this man who I just hit it off with. We just made a connection. And as I got to know him, he started to talk about going to Mars and all these people that he was meeting with in secrecy, which was this group called the Aviary, and that I needed to go with him, and that this was the plan because of certain apocalyptic events that were going to take place on Earth, that this was a survival colony. And I was like, oh, okay, whatever. I'm going to stay here on Earth. I felt a calling to just see kind of like an awakening happen on the planet. And so I was kind of battling him on all of this. And then later on in the relationship, he said that I thought we just met organically, but he told me that eventually he told me that they sent him to meet me, that they had been tracking me, and they used him and they sent him to meet me, to lure me to go off planet. They had located us in a past life using looking glass technologies, knowing that we already had an affinity with each other and a sort of soulmate connection. And so what they did was they put him in their circle and used him as bait to try and get me to go with him to go to Mars, which I refused to do. And this is where, my work is like revealing the deeper layers of secret space programs, timeline manipulation, looking glass technologies, planetary ascension, and what it means as far as the planetary grid network and how that's been manipulated and how we are being engineered through psyops and social engineering to go down a trajectory that we don't need to go down, and that we need to dismantle this weaponry and work together to, uh, be on Earth. And so that's part of my connection with Eisenhower. And supposedly I was a guide to him during his administration and part of the galactic teams, take it or leave it. But, and that he, with the help of Val Thor, because of this unconditional surrender agreement in 1952, was his way of counteracting it. Val Thor assisted him in connecting with the Sphere Being Alliance, and it helps him to establish the Earth Alliance, the White Hats, and the USMC Special Section Ike's Force. So a part of what he did covertly to take down the deep state and this unconditional surrender agreement that we signed in 1952 was, to establish these positive military units and to help with the migration of souls to come in to be the ones that'll help awaken the masses, which is you, which is our colleagues and friends, which is myself and all of us here. That it's us that are going to do it, not the governments. That we are the
Yeah.
disclosure. We are the ones that are going to awaken humanity. So having that recruitment to Mars helped open my eyes to the control agendas and how they tried to talk me into doing something that I deep down knew, like, I need to call this out and I need to dig deeper as to what this means. Because they presented it in a way like, oh, we're choosing you to protect you, to take you somewhere, in the event of these catastrophes. And I was like, well, I feel called to call out all the weaponry and dark alien agendas that have been going on throughout our history so that we can liberate ourselves from them as a humanity and be on Mother Earth, but also reconnect with our galactic family to be able to venture off into, the galaxy, into other planets without the military industrial complex, secret space program, dark fleet aspect of it, with the enslavement of the human soul being a part of it. I'm at a hospice right now
You
trying
see
to.
this diagram here?
Mhm.
This is Rockwell International Integrated Space Program, and it's got us leaving the solar system 2000, but we've already got colonies on Venus, biplanetary by 2008, space, permanent humans in space. This is so complicated. This is the smallest size you can see it to be able to read any of the text. Now,
I just didn't feel that was. I know we're venturing into these places. There's bases, there's civilizations on all these other planets. That just was not the avenue that I wanted to journey to another planet on. Was this group, because they were connected to MJ12 and they're very much
have you
connected to
heard of
deep
the
state.
DVD?
Yeah, I have heard of
It's
that.
the secret German intelligence, but it's not technically German. It's sort of going back to Austro-Hungarian Empire stuff. That's what the CIA is.
Hmm.
And your grandfather was involved with that, possibly. Does that fit with the deep state stuff?
Well, I mean, as a president, the unconditional surrender agreement meant that MJ12 and the three-letter organizations, basically the shadow government, are going to run the show. And the president has no real power.
Yeah.
There's 30 levels of top secret above the president. So everything that had to do with ET exchanges, alien technology, that was back in 1929 during, all
Explain that.
those.
Let's get
Well,
all this explained so people. It just set the scene.
okay. All right. So 1929, Nikola Tesla sells his fourth inventions to the Nazis for $2 million. Um, the US actually refused to buy it from him. In 1929, the Nazis built the Honeyboos and used them to colonize Earth's moon and Mars. In 1929, the Nazis signed agreements with the Galactic Federation of Planets and with the inhabitants of Mars so that they could build colonies on the moon and Mars, which they did. So the actual abductions and, you know, all the ET technology exchanges, happened before Eisenhower. So when this unconditional surrender agreement took place in 1952, everything from that point on became false narratives to cover their tracks. Let's blame Eisenhower for signing treaty with the Greys in 1954, when in actual fact Eisenhower ordered an invasion on the Dulce underground base to take out the Greys. in 1954. So I'm talking to this person who's the senior advisor to the Earth Alliance who did a 20 and back and gained all this information about, what really happened. So it's just to be thrown out on the table to discern, just like with everything else. But I'm going to be putting out a lot of information about what he's been sharing. And it connects a lot of dots with my experience and, the recruitment to Mars. But this goes way back 1929, right?
But it must go back a lot further into the
Well,
1700s.
Anunnaki, well, yeah, Khazarian Mafia, Anunnaki, I mean, yes. But the establishment of the intervening or more alliances being formed with governments really got anchored more around this time because Tesla technology had reached warp one capability. So when we advanced ourselves on a technological level, then we all of a sudden became a part of this, ability to, trade and do business with off-planet beings. That it took that for this, um, agreement, with the Dracos. They were selling 90% of the population to the Dracos, slave trade.
Yes.
And that in 2014, it was going to be, now we're going to give you the humans through a fake alien invasion that was supposed to happen in 2014. So when Valthor assisted Eisenhower in contacting the Sphere Being Alliance, they put an outer barrier around the planet to stop that from happening. And Corey Good talks about it, but there's people that are in this field that are compromised.
You're
And then it
you're giving Corey good credibility.
no, 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 no,
No.
no.
Oh, right. Okay.
I'm saying there's people in this community like him that have been compromised so that when you bring up something like the Fear Being Alliance, we're going to just blow it off as nonsense. I mean, he did speak some truths, but
Well,
we
that's how it
saw
works. You've got to say something to give the hook.
exactly. So this is not about Corey Good. It's about there is a Sphere Being Alliance, the Guardians. And through the help of Althor, Eisenhower appealed to the Guardians. So when we're looking at, okay, what does that mean? The Sphere Being Alliance, the outer barrier put around the planet meant that no dark, nefarious controller groups could come in and none could leave. So they're like, in a sense, trapped. And this is why we're in this final showdown of, seeing the deep state going down, but they're using every tactic known to man to, hook people into a massive psyop or distraction to keep us from doing the work we need to do to advance ourselves and connect with the non-interference galactic greater community that is ready to welcome us but not save us.
We have to act.
Anything most of the what seems to be benevolent that is encouraging us to do. I mean, there's a lot of possible deep state interference with a lot of the channelings and a lot of the communications with galactic federations, even of worlds. And but that's just something to consider. I'm not attacking anybody. I'm not smearing anybody. It's just something to consider.
Well, of course, it can be expected.
What can be expected?
Well, interference, infiltration, causing problems.
Yeah. Right. So, there's just, I mean, I could share a little bit what I know about,
Share as much as you want. Keep talking.
okay. Um, I'm just gonna refer to some notes here.
Do you want to share on screen?
Well,
No, but we'll leave it the way it is.
okay.
You can always send stuff later.
So the deep state trades, does business with 900 different ET species throughout the galaxy alone. So to specify what tech the deep state has acquired via trade with these different ET species, is a lot. But the Trump administration, like a lot of presidents after Truman, has very little impact on deep state control and dominion over the population of the planet. So, this administration needs our help. Only the citizens of the United States have a prayer of doing what is necessary to defeat the deep state. And this is what's very significant about Eisenhower's final speech, is that we need to be an aware and knowledgeable citizenry. I mean, we can't just like accept like, oh, they're here to, help us or encourage our awakening, without having major discernment. And anybody who doesn't allow you to be discerning or to debate or to ask difficult questions, I think is something to be very careful of. There's a lot of people out there, and I'm not going to name names, that are sharing information about, their contacts with Galactic Federation of Worlds and Enki. And I not wanting to say that that's not legit, but it's like we need to be very careful. The Greys, they have been removed, yes, because they took far more than what they originally agreed upon. But that originated long before the Greada Treaty. That was kind of a front, because those gray alien abduction and technology exchanges go way back. So in Eisenhower's administration, not only was he trying to take out the Greys and set up the positive military units, you know, he would have to face having cover stories saying that he signed this treaty, and we would be left in the dark about these other benevolent forces that are, assisting us. But the thing is, they're assisting us in protecting us. They're not assisting us as in making the kind of contact that I think people are yearning for. That's where we have to be kind of careful. The sphere beings operate much differently. And the guardians and the sphere beings, we hold a genetic connection with. And this is a part of us beginning to switch on dormant DNA and understanding, the mechanisms that have been used to compromise our DNA, the siphoning and harvesting of our loosh in order to battery up artificial timelines. We have to understand all of that to break the bond with this inverted system that is that has been in operation for far too long. So, um, it's just I don't know. Any thoughts or questions?
Okay, what about Mars? There's lots of stuff about Mars. I mean, some people are saying that the Venetians, who are part of the darkest cabal, some people call them the Doom cult, came from Mars.
Well, you got the Malbec explosion, right? And refugees from Mars because it impacted the surface population of Mars. Um,
Are they people with a sort of a flattish face?
I'm not sure. I haven't met any.
There's a
I'm not.
certain there's quite a few different peoples being around here.
Yeah. I
Perhaps
mean, I was recruited to go to Mars, but I haven't been to Mars, and I'm not an SSP person, so I'm very limited, and those kind of experiences. But
But what kind
yeah.
of operations are going on in Mars and where? And give us a timeline on that.
Well, there's supposedly about 8 colonies on Mars, and these there's Mars Defense Force, and let's see here.
Give us some timelines so that people can have a conceptual idea of what was going on.
Yeah. Well, like I said, hold on a second. The establishment of bases or colonization of Mars, happening in 1929. In 1929, the Nazis signed agreements with the Galactic Federation of Planets and with the inhabitants of Mars so they could build colonies on the moon and Mars, which they did. So,
Now, who are the people we're dealing with? Who comprises those groups you've just said?
so the joint Nazi and US mission to Mars happened in 1936 in the Hannibal 3 as a 6-4 spacecraft. Um, so we're talking about the Nazis, and yes, Germans, but it's not to reflect on the German people. We're talking about um,
Are we talking Austro-Hungarian Empire and them meeting the dealing with the reptilians way back in the 1700s? I mean, a lot of this is going back to
Yeah, I
Francis
mean,
Bacon, Elizabeth
exactly,
I.
exactly. And this is how, we connect dots. It's like it's not just, Nazis 1929. It's
Yeah,
like
I mean,
it's rooted in
Nazis is
something
really a sort of a
much.
mid 20th century political party.
Exactly, right. So it goes like much deeper. Um, I mean, it's just like and like Zionist. It's just a name, kind of, created. It became the ICC, the Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate,
I'm
and it's
suggesting something arrived which contributed to the destruction of a high technology civilization around about the mid 1700s. And what Tesla was doing was simply leaking that existing technology that was compromised by whatever arrived that time.
yeah. Well, you know, he sold technology, to the Nazis without knowing, what where that was going to go, and then was compromised. Obviously, as we see, he's put in a lab towards the end of his life. Everything, came to light as far as how they used his technology and compromised him. Um,
And that's when they put him in a New York hotel, and he never saw the light of day after that. Is that right?
right, right. Yeah.
But this
So, I
is when
mean,
Trump's cousin at that era was given access to Tesla stuff, wasn't it?
mhm. Yeah. So, I mean, think of 1942, the Battle of LA, where, the Nazis hovered their energy shielded spacecraft over LA for like 2 days. 1952, that's when, all the UFOs hovered over DC. That's when the unconditional surrender agreement took place. So, I mean, to look at, the roots of, what established, the Nazis, we're also dealing with the Nordics and Berlin, New Berlin, the underground base that,
Is
um,
that in Mars,
no, that's uh,
Antarctica?
yeah, I mean, the bases in Antarctica, South America, and all the deep underground military bases, and it's just this whole network.
That's a heck
And
of a
there's,
lot of technology and resources. How was that actioned?
yeah, I have, it's just,
Okay,
I
we'll
mean,
we'll, we'll just
the Treaty of
explain
Versailles.
what you can
Mhm.
now.
Well, Nikola Tesla discovered the sixth fundamental force of nature he called radiant energy in 1890, and the way that these technologies have been used kind of behind our back
Which is why the science that we've been played with has
it
been
has been suppressed
compromised.
from the human race. Yes. So it's just a matter of like these are just hoarders. These are service to self beings that are operating behind the scenes to create the psychological operation and engineered events to keep us enslaved. And so how we can reconnect with all of this. We don't need, aliens to give us this technology. We already figured out you know, Nazi, there's suppressed scientists on the planet right now that um, know how to provide us free energy. It's just
Yes,
this
and
the suppression.
if you get it to a manufacturing stage, you get bumped off.
Right. So we entered into this greater sort of interplanetary corporate conglomerate, multi-level secret space programs, deep state business with, off-planet entities that have created this slave trade with humans in exchange for us putting bases on the moon and Mars and branching out into, you know, this kind of bigger picture. While,
What's on
human,
the moon and what's on Mars that
I
we're
mean, I don't know, I wasn't there, but like
okay?
supposedly that there's like eight, bases. And I mean, so there's terraforming, right? Like it's basically just a total planetary takeover. And been kept in the dark about what our true DNA is truly made of. And you know, they don't want us to know um, about what we're capable of. So the biggest kind of technology trait is the social engineering, the mind control, the 5G, the geoengineering, weather manipulation, and to create this, whole simulation that, allows them to, be in power and provide us like these false lower creator gods that we get caught up in religion, and it's kind of like leading to it's like everything's coming to a head, you know. organic ascension, New World Order, or, the merging of, the techno world and AI being used responsibly as we work on our own spiritual development. Are we at that place? Now, the sphere beings came for that reason, to help us evolve in that kind of way. But we've got a lot to dismantle still as far as the deep state is concerned, because the thing is, psyops, psychological operations, use the trickery of knowing exactly what we want to hear in order to, hook us into a kind of distraction that will prevent us from being able to save ourselves. So that's when we need to look at like the planetary system and, why was our DNA manipulated? Why, we've been enslaved. This is just to keep that, alive. How can we break that? Is where I focus, right? So I'm not like a major expert. So, people listening to me, I'm probably all over the place. I don't have it all like kind of figured out of what's actually happening on Mars. I do understand the roots of things though, like, the galactic wars and how it stepped down here. Anunnaki, Black Suns, Sons of Belial, and how, you know, it began to really take over the pillars of society and the government, and this agreement to take a huge portion of the population uh, that, has been halted. So where does it stand today? It's like, so the origins of the Nazis, Khazarian mafia, also the theft of the Jewish name. I just see these root races being pit against each other, because as long as we're fighting each other, we cannot upgrade or restore our dormant DNA. And as long as we don't have that, we're going to have something creating and controlling us and doing it for us. Oh, sorry, my camera's been off. Yeah. So, it's,
Sorry, I thought you did that deliberately. That's why I didn't mention it.
oh, yeah, no, I meant to put it back on. I just had to
Okay.
get up for a second. So, there's Operation High Jump in 1947, Project Paperclip, 1952. We surrendered unconditionally to the Nazis, but it's more than just that word, as you're saying, right? It's this alliance. You know, Hitler, yeah, and the beginnings of all that, um, was in response to, what happened after, the First World War. Germany signed the Treaty of Versailles, and the reparations on Germany and all that. 27 million Germans starved to death as a result of this, 1919 to 1933. Um, but
Jesus, I didn't know that.
yeah, so there's like a lot of all that kind of hidden history. So I'm going to be working on, documentaries to really kind of lay out the chronology, to, work on connecting dots with other people that have done research like yourself to like get to the bottom of a lot of this hidden history
I
and
mean,
where we stand
my
today.
research started when I interviewed Barry King, and his father found a lab in Germany, or it could have been Poland, Czech area. I don't know the exact geography, but there were labs where they had strange looking humans and strange looking aircraft. They didn't call them spaceships, but they were making some kind of ET or no, a strange looking human. I don't want to. And that's so they were doing that in the war, and that's the Elon Musk train to connection through Africa to what we have now.
Mm.
But we brought the labs to Britain, and they were making stuff there. And then we have the heel prick tests and all that, taking the population, taking kids out of school on day trips, and a lot of them going to bases, and not all of them coming back.
Right. Right. And so, when you look at what goes on in these, underground bases and the trafficking, the how the elitist,
I mean, there's a guy called
cabal
Bob Osborne
operates, it's
has done
like,
a lot of work on Germans working on the energy lines of the planet down at Cornwall.
mhm.
There was the Wolf's Lair there, where a lot of the Nazis pre World War One were operating there. So this connects what with the timelines of what you're talking about.
Right. Right.
They were they mastered getting the energy of the Earth's energy, the ley lines. That's what they were
Yes,
doing
and the
down
and the
there.
Michael Mary line, connected to Cornwall,
Yeah, that's
Avery, going to
Zener. That's
Glastonbury.
where the two lines intersect.
And that's where the electromagnetic energies and the cathar and albion body are connected that got put in reversal grid technologies that replaced the Niberian diet, the crystal grid and the Nephilim reversal grid in these particular spots in order to, yeah, harvest and siphon and the black cube of Saturn and just, it's just,
Yeah, I mean, there's he's written a Bob's actually talking to James Casbolt at the moment. He's not too well after getting out of jail. That's all happening now in terms of those energies. He's got anybody you can mention. We're down there in Cornwall, from D.H. Lawrence going back World War I, and a lot of the cults which came from Switzerland and those kind of technocratic people all went through that little part of Cornwall. And then just up the coast, you got RAF St. Morgan and a lot of other stuff down there.
right.
It's very busy down there
Yeah.
over the last 140 years ish.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's multi-level, multi-layered, and then you got the compartmentalism, and it's
So,
just,
how was this physically done? How were those craft built? Do you know anything about what, the factories or the Honeyboo? Those are huge
yeah, it
craft.
has to do with,
I mean, you're talking 10 years before World War II.
yeah. Well,
That's before the
I
Great
think,
Recession. Do you think the Great Recession was involved? Anyway, I don't want to.
well, I mean, I think we need to do a part two, and I can give some visuals and
Yes.
and you can send me like specific questions, and I can develop it a little bit better and have more of a presentation. And this kind of can be a little bit of a warm up. We've
Yeah,
just
this is
thrown
a
out
warm
like
up.
a whole, yeah, because I
Just
think
keep talking for as long as you
we've
can.
thrown we've thrown out a lot of information, and like then we can kind of like go back and kind of like
Yeah,
break
Val
it.
Thor.
Mhm. Yeah. So 1951 is when he really started to first advise, the Truman administration. He was actually warning about the Nordics and the Greys. What we hear is that the first contact was with the Nordics, and they were warning about the Greys. But it was actually Val Thor. They're not a part of the Galactic Federation. They went rogue because there was non-intervention agreements. Um,
Who went
and
rogue?
well, Val Thor, he independently, well, him and his crew. Uh, started to advise Eisenhower, and Valthor helped him to appeal to the Guardians because Eisenhower was like, "Is there anything more powerful, than the Galactic Federation that can help us?" So there's a confusion: Galactic Federation of Light, Galactic Federation of Worlds. That so some
What?
feel the Galactic Federation of Worlds are benevolent. This is what kind I'm in the middle of, like in trying to uncover and figure out. So I don't want to speak too much on that. I don't want to discredit anybody or make, bold statements just yet, but I'm getting to the bottom of it,
Do you want
I
to?
guess you could
You don't
say.
want to mention any names, but it would have been a bit hasty fitting a tantrum on Facebook about certain things, so we just want to leave that alone.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's all going to make a lot more sense. And I think it requires a little bit more investigation. There's certainly red flags. There's certainly things to just
I
to
think
dig in.
I'm very concerned that we're being distracted by having infighting. Regardless of which end of the spectrum we come from on this, we're
Yeah, it
in a
doesn't
subject area, which means we've got to work together.
exactly.
And
And that's what I'm encouraging.
yeah,
So when that gets
we don't have
misunderstood,
the luxury of arguing amongst ourselves.
exactly. So, I'm trying to put an end to that, reconcile, let's agree to disagree, let's just put it all out on the table. We need to be able to ask the difficult questions. And if that's being dismissed, if that's being banned, if that, this is not a time for censorship or ego battles or I'm right, you're wrong. We've dealt with compartmentalism. We have lots of contactees. We have many abductees and people with their experiences, whistleblowers. It's like we
We
got
have to
to
bring this up to a much higher level and get
exactly,
people
and
together.
we have to open the doors between all the compartments of this compartmentalization,
Yes.
because because and we all have to be willing, and if we can just open the doors between all these different compartments, then we can see a bigger picture. We can start to
Yes.
connect dots. And if we're being refused the respect and ability to do that, then to me that's deep state, you know? And so I'm not into the drama. I'm not into the conflict. I'm not into smearing people. I'm into let's like have debates. Let's have roundtables. Let's all take turns and lay out these questions and concerns and share our experiences and not determine, you know, uh what's legit and what's not legit. Let the people decide, but at least let's let be a part of this greater conversation without shutting each other down and stomping on each other. That's got to stop.
Yes, got to
That's what
stop.
they want. That is what they want.
Yes.
So anybody who is encouraging that or that is keeping that dynamic alive, to me, whatever they're communicating with is not benevolent in my eyes.
Yes, I concur. And what we consider, sometimes when people say things, it's what they're not saying, which is the important thing. But unless they say certain things, the not saying doesn't appear. Do you understand?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
what they said may have, this is about Rumsfeld's known unknowns, but it's that kind of a thing.
Right. Totally. So, you know, and there's a good reason to um question some of the crafts that people see and what they're doing. And everything's got to be laid out on the table. And we as a humanity have to refuse being pit against each other. To be free of the deep state is to be free of the psyops, is to be able to look at everything as maybe the possibility that it's not legit, so that through discernment it can prove itself to be legit. What is wrong with that? I think we
Yeah.
deserve that. We're a traumatized humanity. For thousands and thousands of years, we've been deceived, betrayed, lied to. We've been dealing with, um, a lot of uh, problem, reaction, solution kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
and I think it's part of our maturity and a part of our development to, be able to stand strong in our sovereignty and discernment without it being a problem and an issue. And I don't know why it is, because it's getting like twisted and turned around. Like if you do that, you're the attacker. You're the one that has the problem. And it's very much like a narcissist kind of like manipulation is what I'm noticing.
Yes. Well, we've
So
been psy-up to hell, basically. But it's time to
yeah,
get
so
through that.
yeah, just like if you were coming out of a relationship of an abuser narcissist and you meet somebody who is actually genuine, do you think they're going to ban you and never want to talk to you again because you're walking with caution and hearing what they have to say? It's like we deserve that after all we've been through.
Yes.
And that's all I'm trying to say is like, I'm not attacking anybody. It's like, I'm just like all about the unity, pulling it all together, laying it all out on the table. Um, we're all leaders. We all hold a very unique and special purpose.
Do you have any
Uh,
ideas how that could physically be done? I mean, holding a group of people together, or see, one of the aspects that we're dealing with a hostile alien technology we're using right now, because they're listening on everything that we're doing, obviously.
well, we can only like attempt to try and see who's going to come and who refuses. And I think those that refuse is like that they've just proven themselves. Because what would be the issue? Um, why not? Why keep these battles alive? It's like healing, forgiveness, compassion, reconciliation, and I mean, I don't mind if people interview people who have smeared me. It's just there's no time for that. It's like,
We don't
okay,
have
you
time for
discern.
this.
You discern, if you believe that, okay, fine. I don't care because I know what my truth is. If you think I'm this or that, I'm not going to get bent out of shape. I don't need loyalty. I mean, I want loyalty and integrity with my close friends to a certain degree, but like I don't mind being questioned and debated or because I'm happy to take the time to help you to see who I am and why I feel strong about the information I present. I'm not going to attack you or ban you if you talk to people who don't like me and smear me. It's like these are all petty lower games that
Yes,
we
yes.
need to evolve beyond. And the thing is, we have ET genetics, and as long as we're in the lower negative ego, we're still in a dependency bond with some sort of psyop or controller agenda that is masking itself as supporting us and guiding us. But look at the symptoms. Is it uniting people or is it causing pain and discomfort and division? That's a clear sign that I don't care how fancy these technologies look or how great the lingo is. It's not producing the results that we need. And so I want to like lead by example and encourage healing, reconciliation, and laying it all out, and having these difficult debates. If people don't think the Christ Sophia and the divine template is a crock of shit, that's fine. Ask me any question you want. The truth is going to remain whether you believe it or not. There's nothing to defend or to fight over about it. What we need to do is work on our wounds and work on healing and work on, you know, uh, establishing trust. But it needs to be not proven, but it needs to be, we need to initiate into it by exercising our discernment, not blind trust. When does that ever work for us? We've
No,
learned those lessons as a humanity, and let's give ourselves the respect to honor that lesson.
that's absolutely, I concur on that.
Yeah. So we can do a part two and just really,
Okay.
kind of get into these deeper questions. We can have a back and forth a little bit. Um, I'm kind of in a difficult situation until I get back home. But
Okay. Thank
yeah.
you for making the effort to make this happen, Laura. It's very important.
Oh, I really appreciate you so much, Miles. Thank you so much.
Well,
And I'll gather, something a lot more kind of cohesive and a little bit more organized for next
well,
time.
I think it's just great. Just anyway, it's just great.
Okay, awesome.
Okay,
All
good.
right. Much love. All right, bye.